IFSP and IEP, there are roles for each entity. The Early Childhood Education Program staff can attend both types of meetings and review copies of the plans with the parent and guardian or guardian permission. For early childhood education programs, it's very important that the program staff that attend is familiar with the child so they can speak to their daily functioning and the adverse impact of the referral reason. The staff should be an active listener, provide support to the parent with regards to the evaluation, eligibility, the process, the procedures, just to be there for the parents. The staff can also share observations when they see the child regularly and can speak to their daily functioning, ask questions, and be respectful of the process and the other team members. For both Child and Family Connection offices and the LEAs, also be an active listener, and provide support to the parents, ask questions, complete valid and reliable assessments with fidelity. Again, it's important to be respectful of the process and to other team members, and also to keep those assessment results confidential. The parent will be provided a copy of the child's IFSP or IEP at the end of the meeting. If an early childhood education program is present at the IEP meeting, they will be provided a copy of this with parental consent. If the program is not present, a copy of the document can be sent with, again, parental consent. Participation in the IFSP and IEP process should also be outlined in the MOU. That discusses how everyone will communicate with the parents about the participation in the meetings. In doing this, you would develop a standard script to ensure that all parents are encouraged to include the early childhood education programs, and to make sure that ongoing and protected communication time is available for collaboration across the providers. Early childhood education administrators should encourage staff to attend the IFSP or IEP meeting and provide support such as subs in order to make that an easier thing to accomplish. As research indicates, staff report supportive administrators make them more successful in caring for children with special needs. Early childhood education staff attendance at meetings is critical for several reasons. The staff can stay up to date on what services the child is receiving. Therapists can provide the staff suggestions and strategies to support the child in that environment. And staff can also share with therapists and parents any progress that they are seeing within that early childhood education environment. Participation in the meetings also help develop a relationship amongst all programs, the early childhood education program, therapists, the families, which in turn just creates a really good support system for the child. We'll turn it back over to Susan to talk more about the MOU process.
Great. The fourth component of the MOU process is service provision in natural environments and community-based settings. Service provision in natural environments is a tenet of early intervention. Professional development can be an important support for staff serving young children with delays and disabilities. Early intervention service providers can help community-based partners adapt their routines to support young children with delays and disabilities. It can also be important for community partners to participate in service planning and review meetings in order to fully understand the child's needs and how best to support him or her across the settings and situations in which he or she participates. Parental consent is an important part of this communication and allows all partners to notify one another if issues arise or if there are disruptions in service delivery. For students aged 3 to 5, students should receive special education supports and services within the least restrictive environment, or LRE. The question that should be asked when determining this is, where would the child be if he or she did not have a disability? Many times the answer to that question is the early childhood program. The ECE program should be considered as a location for delivery of services. The LEA should also provide resources to the ECE staff to help support the IEP in that environment. So when developing your MOUs, some topics for consideration include expectations regarding service delivery, communicate expectations amongst the EI provider, the early childhood provider, and the family to keep everyone informed on the child's progress. Confidentiality and any limitations on communication should be discussed. For HIPAA requirements, personally identifiable information is never to be shared without explicit consent. FERPA also requires that nothing within a child's record can be shared without explicit consent. Also, protected time for collaboration among providers is very important, such as during intervention visits or during the IFSP or IEP review meetings. Another consideration is to think about what related services will be provided, such as transportation for the child receiving ECSE at a school. These related services are going to be really important in order to ensure success in whatever environment makes most sense for that child and/or family. It's important for each party to have an understanding of each other's policies and procedures. For example, DCFS licensure does not require EI providers to do an additional background check specific to the early childhood program. The requirement is only that they have one, not that the early childhood program must have one performed, as all credentialed providers have successfully passed a background check in order to obtain their credential. For licensing purposes, EI providers are not considered employees of the early childhood program. There are a variety of resources available to support service provision in natural environments and community-based settings. The websites listed on this slide can be a resource for you as you develop your MOU with partners and as you are providing services to young children and families. The fifth component of the MOU process discusses local collaboration councils. There are several opportunities for early childhood educators and early intervention, early childhood special ed providers to work together. Opportunities include local interagency councils, also called LICs, coordinated intake meetings, and AOK network meetings. LICs are local advisory boards made up of parents, providers, and other stakeholders, established for each CFC geographic region. Having representatives within each group can facilitate improved communication across programs. It's important to have an LEA representative attend these meetings as well. LIC meetings can also provide an opportunity to discuss system challenges and plans for improvement. These meetings can also provide an opportunity to discuss MOUs and decide who will attend the local interagency council meetings and the ongoing goals, activities of the local interagency council. LIC contact information can be found on the Early Intervention Clearinghouse website at the website listed here. I'm now going to turn this back over to Christy as she talks to us a little bit about transitions from early intervention to early childhood special ed.
Thanks. For students receiving services from early intervention, they'll begin a transition process to early childhood special education approximately 6 months before a child's 3rd birthday. The early childhood education program can play an important role in this transition, as well as to help support all parties in the transition. The CFC, the Child and Family Connections Office, initiates the transition activities. They begin about 9 months before the child's 3rd birthday and no later than 90 days before the 3rd birthday. It's a 6-month period, but it can start earlier than 30 months of age. However, conversations about transitions begin when the child enters early intervention, and the specific activities of notification, the IFSP steps and services, and transition planning conference begin no earlier than 9 months prior to, but no later than 90 days prior to the child's 3rd birthday. The LEA should have the evaluation complete and the IEP developed and ready to implement by the child's 3rd birthday. They should work with the early intervention providers to receive information on the child and ensure parents are comfortable with the transition and provide supports for them. It's also very important for the LEA to have a representative at the child's early intervention transition meeting. The Early Childhood Education Program knows the child well, and they have a lot of information to share as part of the transition. The program staff will also be a constant for both the child and the family during the transition and can serve as a trusting source of comfort. The Early Childhood Education Program can also develop a point of contact with the school district to help facilitate the smooth and consistent transition process. Here you will find several transition resources that may be useful to your program. Allie's going to now talk about professional development for us.
Thanks. And so the final component of the MOU process references professional development. And this MOU process is an opportunity to discuss shared professional development. Shared professional development helps foster relationships and facilitates communication. And so things to consider when developing your MOU are what type of training and professional development is offered. So for example, things like shared training or perhaps consultation to an early childhood program for individual children. Also, another thing to consider is that the MOU could explain how the opportunities will be publicized and communicated to the early childhood program. And another example is that professional development for staff can be written into a child's IFSP or IEP, such as consultation and time for collaboration. And so to conclude, our main takeaway from this presentation is to ensure that we are all supporting families in understanding the referral, evaluation, and service timelines, understanding results of evaluations and services provided, participating in eligibility and IFSP and IEP development, and understanding and participating in service provision. Supporting meaningful inclusion of children with special needs in early childhood requires strong collaboration among the various service providers engaged with children and their families. We hope that the tools reviewed today will assist the early care and education, the early intervention, and the early childhood special education systems and their staff and providers to better partner and communicate so that all children with special needs can be served more effectively. If you have questions about early intervention, contact IDHS. For questions about early childhood special education, contact the Illinois State Board of Education. And for questions about childcare, you may contact your local childcare resource and referral agency. Thank you so much for viewing this webinar.